Okay, yeah. One of the things I discovered about vector operator overloading was is that it should be used with caution in your function because basically, and this is hard to explain, but basically when you go and overload a function, I mean overload an operator, it ends up calling your constructor, and it basically creates a temporary copy. At least in certain instances, it does. Now, whether you're dealing with the RHS versus LHS, because I don't think it might be a problem on like the RHS, but I can't remember. If you're dealing with the right-hand side versus the left-hand side, what I mean by that, is like A equals B. Okay, A is the left-hand side, B is the right-hand side, equals is the operator. Okay, um, but yeah, it what it does is it's kind of funky, but you can follow through. On if you step through it on debugging, you can follow it through because basically, it'll call this operator function, okay, and pass it a parameter in, but then it'll go actually call the constructor, okay, and create a temporary version, but then in the end it's going to come through and come back to this, and before it returns its value, it's going to end up copying the return value over your current, sometimes over your current um, object. So, in other words, if you have like a variable that's not part of, it's just like a member variable that's off on its own. Like for example, we deal with x and y here, right? That's, this is a 2D vector, okay? So, that Chili's defined. It's his own vector. He's writing his own. This is almost like a structure. This could be done kind of as a structure if you wanted to. But if you pass in x and y to it, to initialize it, and it, sets the x and y value. But here I have a z value equals 5. Well, if you go change that z value, okay, and then you perform this overloaded operation on it. Let's say I put 99 in z, somewhere else in the program, but then I perform this overloaded, plus equals addition with it. Basically, it's going to end up overwriting that value. So when your operation is complete, yeah, sure, you'll have new data in your x and y related to the operation you carried out, but guess what? Your z will be defaulted back to 5, so you'll lose your data. So you've got to be cautious with using operator overloading, because it can fuck up your member data. Now, I don't know if it does it. It seems like if you do it with one form, because it's kind of confusing, and again, I've forgotten, you can kind of read my notes that probably explains it, but I just don't have time to really read it right now. Um, but if you, you know, um, are dealing with an operation, okay, and since this is right hand side, I wouldn't think that would work, but then again, this is kind of where I discovered this thing, because we've got a right hand side and a right hand side operation in both of these cases. But this is how I discovered that this did this. That's why I went and created this z variable to try to test this theory, and it turns out that it's true. That the z value, even when I changed it in code somewhere down here, um, wherever the fuck it is, vec dot 1 z equals 1 2 3, okay, and then we perform this operation on it, and then if we look at x, y, and z, you can see that that shows that all members must be initialized in the constructor, because it basically copies the new object it creates. It creates a virtual object of the same type, and it copies that data onto your old object. So that's what it does. So as a result, your constructor gets initialized because it essentially creates a new object, and calls the constructor to create a new object, and that's its virtual object, and then it just temporarily, it copies that over and then destroys the object. So by the time your operation is done, well, the temporary object's gone, but so is your data. So if you had like 50 variables in here that you've been modifying, but you just wanted to do an operator, um, you know, if you wanted to just overload an operator, for that function. Well, for two variables, 2 or 3 variables, well, you're probably going to lose your freaking data each time. Now there may be ways I think you can go define your own copy constructors and stuff like that. So maybe you can get around that, but with the default constructor, that's what it does. Now, as far as what a copy constructor and destructor looks like, I have no fucking clue. I didn't even know they existed until recently, and I mean I've not seen anything about it, but I know they do. I know apparently you can define your own too, and there are other types of constructors you can in destructors pairs you can work with as well, like I don't know what they are, but I had no idea that shit existed. So, but that's just a word of caution, and that's what to take from this. Otherwise, an operator overloading, again, there's plenty of shit, and Chili's, some of Chili's tutors on it, and but you also got this, as an example, playing around with it. But because of that, I don't know how much I'm going to mess with operator overloading. I'd have to be real desperate to want to do it. But it may turn out to be something I need to learn more about, if I need it. But I just know that's a little note of caution to add, and this is, again, this is the same lesson where I learned about arrays being pointers and characters being pointers and all that stuff. So, but at any rate, that pretty much finishes, well, I guess we need to run this thing, right? Can't not run it, right? Okay. Alright, so it's giving me an error. I knew there were some errors in some of my code. As far as it took it that long to... So it ran this long, let's see. Proves pointers can act as arrays at any instant. Okay, let's see what we got here. Okay, well I guess that's the beginning of the code. Okay, well, shit. But oh, I know why this is doing that, because I was playing with the fact that pointers, it doesn't matter. I mean, you run this code, sometimes you'll get an error, sometimes you won't. So but sometimes you'll get an error, sometimes you won't, because basically, I'm also proving that arrays aren't limited to how you define them, so you might define an array, equaling 4 or having 3 or 4 or 10 elements or whatnot, but you can actually go outside of that, but you're going to be writing into code, into code territory that's not reserved for you. So, but this is where I learned that, hey, sometimes this throws a violation error, sometimes it doesn't. But I'm writing way beyond the bounds of the official bounds of the array, and I discover in here that, look, you can repoint arrays too. I mean, you can actually repoint, it's a pointer. And I talk about what the exact differences are, and the same with characters. Somewhere in here, I think I did with character arrays. But that's what I'm saying. You're not bounded when you declare an array. Let's see if we can find one here. Well, here's an array being declared. Just declare with 4 elements. Okay, array 2. And I'm staying within those bounds, so I'm actually not doing much with that. But here, this array 2, which does have just 4 elements defined. I'm accessing the 20th element, the 400th element, and that's kind of where our exception was thrown. So, my point is, you're not limited by it. There's no bounds checking on arrays like some other languages. I know in Visual Basic you try to do that, it fucking really, goes ape shit. So, but the same with character arrays, etc. like I said, the only difference between a character array and a regular array is that a character array actually looks for a, that /0, the end of line pointer or whatever they call it, not the end of line, but I forgot what it's called. But anyway, it looks for the end terminator, the terminator. So string terminator. Whereas an array doesn't. In an array, if you use the size of command, it'll always show you the size of the array. So this equals size of array. We might try to run this program again, but I mean, it might not throw an exception this time. Like I said, it only does every now and then. Yeah, see, it didn't this time. So, it shows you the kind of garbage we're pulling out, and see, this is, the size of array 2 is 16, but the size of a pointer of the same type is only 4. So, and that's what I'm saying. If you use the size of, it'll always tell you what the original array size that was declared, to be is. So that's the thing. You can point it to anything else, but it'll always give you, if it's pointed to something other than your original array, it'll give you a misleading size estimate. And then of course you'll have lost your original array too if you go repoint it. But the point is, you can do that if that's what you want to do. So, and same with characters, but you'll orphan your data, if you go repoint your pointer. So, you'll never be able to recover it again unless you store its location in another pointer, and even then, well, I mean, that should work. I mean, you should be able to do that. But the point is that I did learn a lot fucking around with this particular lesson, this Chili console, about arrays and more about arrays and pointers and so forth. And even this operator overloading, I saw what the bounds were. But again, there probably are ways around that, because I'd imagine that would annoy some people. But but it's just something to be aware of. So let's go look at the next project in it, in the series, which is Chili console. Oh, yeah, that's what we're looking at. Okay, Chili pointers 2. Let's see if there's anything new to add here. This is a pretty long program too. Let me look it over. Okay, this is, using pointers, and this is, Chili getting more into the use of pointers. And what this, he does show some interesting tricks with for next loops in here. Shows that you can pass an empty parameter, to start one if you're dealing with pointers, and says, we'll keep printing characters until null terminator is hit. So it's basically, using it almost like you would a while loop or something. But he's saying, pointer, because we're having a character pointer passed in, and then he's saying, he's incrementing the pointer, so he's using pointer arithmetic, and this is where he's also advising people, not to use pointer arithmetic, but he's still demonstrating it. But it'll loop until, our pointer is, as long as our pointer is not equal to 0. So, anyway, then he's, doing a put character, so it will keep printing characters, from the pointer using, dereferenced pointer. So it'll keep doing that until, remember, that's dereferenced pointer is not equal to 0. You're not looking at the pointer address, so don't forget that. But he is incrementing the pointer itself, its address, that it's pointing at. So, that's just kind of interesting that he's using the for next loop that way. That's worth mentioning. Let's see, he's reading a character buffer. Let's see, this is what I'm saying. He makes his own print character. Okay, well, seriously, for printing to the console or whatever. Why not just use cout, or printf, or whatever. But again, if you're new to programming, hey, this might be interesting for you. But These guys are video game programmers. I can't imagine them being interested in freaking console applications. Honestly, it's bad enough you're dealing with a console application when you got to go define all your own fucking functions on top of that. That really sucks. But it is a good exercise. I mean, if you're new to programming, it is a good exercise. This makes me pull my hair out a little bit. And he, this is talking about pointers and, passing in, how you can, he's defining a pointer here, basically PN, but he's calling it constant there and constant there, okay? This constant right here protects what the pointer is pointing at. This one here protects the pointer itself. So, okay, well maybe it's the reverse of that. But, you would think this would apply to the pointer, not this would apply to the data it's pointing at, but, maybe it's the reverse of that. So he's really just reading characters from a keyboard, using a different function, from somewhere in one of these libraries. So it happens to involve an underlying character. Buffer equals 0, null terminator for string. Okay, so string to integer, again, that's driving me crazy. Because this is something that you really need to learn how C does it, because instead of creating your own function to do that, because that is a tricky subject, when you're casting data and everything else. I mean, it's a tricky subject, and it's I don't think that's very good to be, just doing it, your own function for it when there's already a wealth of functions that are well protected, but there's so many of them, you need a guide to tell you which ones are good and which ones are bad, so, that's what he really should have focused on here, because, that really, there are functions for this, and the reverse of it, even though it is an interesting exercise, and it's an interesting thinking exercise, but still, that's what aggravated me, not that he did it this way, but that he didn't show us the normal way to do it. That's what was killing me, right there. Because I mean, it's fine as an exercise. It is a good programming exercise. I mean, this stuff, these are good programming exercises. He's right about that, but it's just, he's robbing you of the normal way to do it. He's not showing you that. And this videos, that was making me pull my hair out, big time. I mean, doing this is bad enough when you're a seasoned programmer, but man, not being shown because that's the only reason I stuck through the whole lesson, is because of the fact I was hoping he would get to, the modern C++ way of doing things, that he never did. So he never covered it. But at any rate, here he's testing for a couple of conditions, as you can see in his for loop, again, no parameter, but he's dealing direct loop pointers and pointer arithmetic. They're right there and right there. So his loop is going to continuously increment in through it, but you notice this is the extent of the loop. This is the body of the loop right here. So it executes this loop basically, and looking for characters that are between 0, greater than or equal to 0, or less than or equal to 9. So, when it finds the first character, well, when it finds the first character that's not like that, it'll loop as long as this condition is true. But when it's the first time it's not true, in other words, when it's out of numeric characters, then it'll stop incrementing. Then it'll go and decrement by 1 the pointer. Then it sets its, let's see, int value 0, convert place values and accumulate. Then we're going through another loop. String to integer. So he's trying to find the numbers, and okay, this will keep incrementing p or decrementing P that's greater than equal to S. What the fuck is S? Oh, S is what we're passing into it, okay. Character pointer. Alright. So anyway, I'm not going to bother explaining the code. It's understandable though. You just have to follow along with it. Again, I ain't got time for this, to go through it. Because it's not a big deal since I'm not, going to create this. Oh, and this is that recursion routine that I was telling you about. That this is a motherfucker to try to follow. Oh man, and I try to debug these recursive routines. Oh man, they just, that's why even Chili says generally don't use them. But don't just use them anywhere. But if you got to, you got to. But sometimes you got to. There are things that you can only do with recursive functions. But my God, I still don't know if I'm ever going to be able to wrap my head around them. Okay, string reverse. This does the reverse of the opposite, I guess, or reverses the string or what the shit ever. And this is int to string, which does the reverse of the function we're looking at in detail up there. And basically, this is just the body of his code doing all that. So let's run it for the fun of it and move on. So type some shit. And okay. I think the thing's fucking. I was like 49 was too big of a number for a Fibonacci number. Fibonacci number. I don't know. Looks like the computer's jammed. Probably is. I mean, that fucking thing got so screwy, oh yeah, actually there was an error in that code. That probably is what happened. I think I ended up exploring it later, but I did find the error. But anyway, I'm just going to go ahead and close it down, I think. Yeah. This is passing in a pointer to the literal string. Okay. Oh, well, anyway, I'll bring up the next one. Okay, this is, just a recreation. Basically, I copied it over and put it in Chili's namespace, but I don't think that was part of the lesson. Because this is file IO is what this is about. So, and this is, he's just using a different way of accessing files. So, but he's using his functions to do it. Apparently, which he created in the previous lesson. So again, just get on my nerves. Like I said, Chili's good. If you're new to C programming or whatnot, or game development, you want to learn that. I mean, his lessons are really quite good. So it's worth a shot, but it does kind of drive me crazy sometimes. Like I said, if I was new to programming, I'd be eating that shit up, but I'm not. I've been coding for fucking 40 years. Programming is really programming at the end of the day, but there's differences. Trying to learn those differences, especially on C, because C++ is just terrible, because you got to learn like a fucking language, okay, to learn a fucking new language. So, because you got to learn all their fucking terminology and shit, and then of course, it's, worse still because, it's just, there's a lot to learn, and it's just, there are a lot of nuances to C++ and so forth, so that makes it way worse. So, that's why I've stayed away from it. It's just, I don't know, for lack of a better word, it's almost like somebody just kind of threw this together, and in fact they did. If you look at the history of C even, it was just actually kind of thrown together, and it just kind of accidentally became in widespread use thanks to DEC, Digital Equipment Corporation. So it's, anyway, it could have been more refined, so, a lot of aspects of it are kind of crude. But at any rate, that's all this does. It just writes some files, kind of like those programs we were dealing with. And I don't think he does anything special like deal with binaries. I don't think he's gotten to that yet. So this is out of his new series, by the way, not his old series. Let's just run the thing and see what happens. Okay, successfully reached into file. Fucking cheap, main. Okay. Glad it successfully reached the end of the file. So now what? Okay. Yeah, some of these programs are a little squirrely because I was, experimenting with them, when I last had them open. So anyway, but yeah, I'm not going to go into detail, but you see what the code is in there. But again, it's all mixed in with his, his versions of string operations and stuff, so that makes it a little bit funky. But where's he putting the, put character? Because he did use a different file access method than I've seen him use on his other videos. If stream, okay, he's using, okay, if in, opening a file, and this in object he's creating, seeking, okay, okay, in, so that's his in thing, input, I assume, character buffer, and again using his operations. So put character, okay, so checking for end of file and so forth, and it's going off stream output. So I guess here he's writing a file. I don't know what with. So it probably wrote whatever file that is. Output. I don't think he's ever closing his files, is he? Anyway, but he's definitely got more to do on file I/O, because this is his first foray into it, as in his new series. So he's got more to cover on it. Anyway, at some point I'm sure he will, but But at any rate, this just at least demonstrates there are yet another way to access files in C++. So that's not really supported by. I don't know if this is supported by Windows or not. Probably isn't though. Because again, Windows kind of has its own way of doing it, but this is certainly one way to do it. But if you're dealing with like Windows text, like from a text box and somebody and you want to save a file, okay, I don't know if this is what you want to use for it because, again, if it's not in, if it saves it as an ASCII file, then, versus the, single character ASCII file versus a double character file, that'd be a problem. Can't believe I still can't remember that stupid font type. I need to look that up, I guess. It's stupid. I mean, I know that from a long time ago. The two character fonts. It's just, been brain, dead spot in my brain on it for a while now. Okay, open project. I think that's it for the Chili file I/O, and then beyond that, these are programs we've already covered down here earlier in the series, but I think we're in the Chili framework section now, so groovy. But at any rate, I'll go ahead and conclude it. Let's see, these were some of the earliest ones. What this one did. Oh, okay. Oh yeah, this is a precursor to the sound in it. He hadn't covered it yet. But this program I did write pretty much from scratch, so but it's still, I didn't really write it though. I'm just, I was following his code because I was too afraid to experiment around too much because I didn't want to have him go off and do it different, because that happens so many times. I'd code my own stuff and then he does it differently, so I got to go erase everything I did and do it like he did it so I could follow the lesson, so anyway, yeah, it was a pretty cool game. But at any rate, that's a different video if I cover these in videos at all.